Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 331, What the Experts Say, the number one way to break the drinking habit. Well, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited about this episode because it's a little bit extra. And it's a little bit extra because I've gathered some top opinions in the alcohol addiction recovery space and looked at what those thought leaders and opinion leaders on helping people break alcohol addiction and how it compares to what I teach in a core principle level. And I'm happy to say that I think we're all on the same page. So I've put together a really awesome episode, sort of breaking into 4 sections of what these experts and I agree on what makes it like the number one thing, the number one way to break a drinking habit. And to accompany this podcast episode, I have a very special treat. It's a worksheet. It's called the Pivot Reflection Worksheet. And what I want you to do is download this worksheet. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the URL that's in the show notes of this podcast episode. So whether you're listening to it on my website or on iTunes or Spotify, all you have to do is open up whatever you're listening to in this episode, and there'll be a link right at the beginning of the description of the podcast, and it'll be very clear about where to go. And you click on it and you're going to enter your email address, and then I'm going to email it to you, and it's all automatic and you'll get it right away. But this worksheet is amazing because it breaks down this podcast episode into segments, and each segment of this podcast episode, there's some reflection questions that you can answer and get a little bit more clarity on things around these 4 areas of the ways to break your drinking habit. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be super helpful. And then at the end of the worksheet, there's, getting you to take action. So what the end of the worksheet is your pivot point. So the question is, what's one decision you could make this week to change the direction of your relationship with alcohol? And you're going to answer that question. And that will set you into motion. And the awareness that you're going to get by answering these questions and putting pen to paper is going to be super helpful for you. So I highly encourage you to get the companion worksheet to this podcast episode and take this work a little bit deeper. A lot of you guys listen and you're like, yeah. Yes, I resonate with everything that you're saying. It's so on point. And then you go about your day and you don't really apply what I'm saying to your life. This worksheet is going to be helpful for you to actually apply what I'm telling you. And so that you reinforce these lessons and you get to have a little bit of clarity on maybe some roadblocks for yourself or where you might need some more support. Okay. So if you do the worksheet, let me know how it works for you. And also to remind you about the pivot. The pivot is a free 4-day coaching experience that's going to help direct you in the right relationship with alcohol. And it's at angelamascenik.com/the pivot. I've also hyperlinked that up in the show notes. So if you haven't signed up for that, I want you to do that as well. That could be the one thing that you do that pivots you in the right direction. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this episode today, what the experts say, the number one way to break the drinking habit. So if you've ever said to yourself, like, why do I keep drinking when I don't want to? And I have high motivation in the beginning and then I fall off. And you're frustrated about that. You're not alone, as you probably are aware. Today, I've done some research on what the leading addiction experts say is the most effective way to break drinking patterns. And it's probably not what you're thinking. So a lot of times when we do this work, it's not about just focusing on not drinking or removing the alcohol from the house or avoiding bars and social situations and saying no and just focusing on not drinking. I take it deeper, and I'm really happy to see that the experts and I, which I, call myself an expert on this, are all on the same page. It's just, the delivery in which we're talking about these things. And so in this first section of this episode, I want to talk about time. And sometimes taking a break from alcohol is the best option, so you can get a little bit more clear. Now, some of the leading experts believe that you need to take a long-term break from, at least 30 days of abstinence to sort of rebalance your brain and how you're wired for pleasure and all of that. And I just want to, even though that's what the other experts say, I just want to err on the side of you get to decide here. You're in charge. And if 30 days is like, no way, I can't do that. That seems way too big to start, or I'm just not there yet. We'll look at, okay, let's take a 5-day break or a 2-day break, or let's just not drink today to give your brain a reset. Okay. So I've mentioned this book before. It's Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke. I've read that book. I highly recommend that you guys read it too. But she says the key to breaking addiction is to first abstain long enough to allow the brain's dopamine system to reset. And so I've talked about this on the podcast before, but basically what happens is when you drink on a regular basis, especially in response to your feelings or to have more fun or to deal with stress at the end of the day or just to relax, right? You're training your brain that it needs that alcohol to feel some sort of feeling, okay? And when you do that and you train your brain to need that alcohol, it gets a hit of dopamine. And dopamine is that feel-good chemical that makes you feel good, right? And it motivates you to go do that thing again. So a lot of you guys have trained your brain to want alcohol in these certain situations, and it makes sense because you're getting this reward system on the other side of it. That's the dopamine, right? And often, after many years of over drinking and drinking in these types of patterns, your brain kind of it's not regulating the dopamine in the correct way, right? So for me, I don't drink anymore. It's been almost 7 years. It'll be 7 years this summer. I get little dopamine hits throughout the day. I know how to create that feel-good feeling on my own. I don't need drugs or alcohol or something else outside of me to feel good. I know how to do that in a natural, more holistic way. But when you rely on alcohol for pleasure, that's like your only source of pleasure at the end of the day, you've been working all day, blah, 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 and you drink, you get a really big dopamine kick. And it's sort of like this unnatural dopamine flood. And then your brain's like, oh yeah, that was easy. That felt good. Let's do that again, right? And so then it urges you to go do that again in another situation. And so the idea here of this break of alcohol to sort of re-regulate your pleasure receptors and to get more to like a homeostasis where you can get these hits of pleasure and feel-good feelings without the big highs and the lows is a concept, and it's one that I do agree with. And you just kind of have to start where you are. So maybe you take a 5-day break, or maybe you've experimented with, sewing together 3, 4, 5 days in a row, and you want to expand that into a little bit longer. For me, in my own journey, I definitely when I started my journey to change my relationship with alcohol, I took a long-term break. And I decided that I was going to stay alcohol-free until I got to my goal weight. That was my initial motivator. Because when I looked at my past and all of my ups and downs with my weight and things, alcohol was certainly an impediment. And so I decided to do something I've never done before and do this long-term break. And I didn't know how long that was going to take. So I didn't really have an end date on it. I just knew that I was going to be committed to doing that. And it ended up being 90 days. And I'll tell you what, those 90 days transformed my life because I got to see exactly what I'm talking about. I started feeling happy about the birds chirping in the morning, seeing the sun filtering in through the trees when I was out walking. All these little things that I didn't really care about because I was more focused on the wine at the end of the day. I did start care about, and that I got these little dopamine kicks throughout the day. So I was more balanced, right? And so that's what you want to see, is just sort of getting back to your natural balance. That's what I do and coach you on, is like, it's stop over drinking and start living. So we start adding things into your life that make you feel good without the bad side effects. Because when you get a big dopamine kick, you also have to come down from that. And when you're going through alcohol withdrawal, which is what it is the next morning when you feel like crap, right? That's alcohol withdrawal. You're also having a dopamine withdrawal. And it's a sharp incline, or a sharp increase and then a sharp decrease. And that's why we feel bad, right? And it's hard to recover from that. So then you get stuck into that cycle again. So that's what I wanted to explore in this section 1, is this idea of why time away from alcohol works. And this is what the experts are saying as well. If you give yourself more time away from it, you have more opportunities to regulate your system, regulate that dopamine flow, and to start understanding you don't need alcohol to feel good, right? But sometimes it takes longer periods of abstinence to rebalance that. So be open to taking longer breaks. If you haven't explored in a 30-day break before, maybe that could be time to do that now. You get to decide. I am not a hard and fast like Dr. Lemke and Dopamine Nation, where you have to go 30 days, because I want to help you just get going. And if you can do 3 days, that's awesome. And we can just keep building it on from there. So the next section that you'll see in the worksheet and here right now on the podcast is why the pain and why not the wine. Okay, so this quote is by Dr. Gabor Mate. The question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. And we talk about this a lot here on the podcast, right? So I say it's not about the alcohol. That's what this section really should be titled. It's not about the alcohol. It's about why you're drinking in the first place. So we look at the emotional roots of our overdrinking: stress, loneliness, overworking, overperforming, past traumas, right? So maybe something to think about is like, what is my drinking protecting me from? It's protecting me from boredom, from being tired, from working all day and feeling drained, right? So you need to treat that lack of being with your feelings and filling up those emotional needs instead of numbing it, right? That's what this whole section is about. So we want to get to the root of why you're drinking in the first place. And so in the worksheet, we go over some of those questions. It's like, what is happening? What are some feelings or situations that you notice that often precede your drinking? Is it stress, boredom, loneliness, overworking, anxiety, overwhelm, right? So like, what are some of these feelings? And you have to pause long enough to ask yourself these questions. So maybe going forward this week, it's like, okay, in my normal drinking patterns, I'm just going to pause and say, okay, if I didn't drink right now, what would I have to experience emotionally, right? Another question that's in the worksheet is, what might your drinking be protecting you from feeling or facing, right? So these are just different questions that are going to get at some of these deeper answers that will reveal to yourself the source of the pain that you're drinking from. And I promise you, you're not just drinking because you want to have a good time and to celebrate. There's something else there. Yes, we drink to amplify celebratory things. That's also, you want to amplify those feelings, right? You want the fun. You want to feel more fun. You want to feel more joy. You want to feel more connection. It's because you're missing something there. You're missing some joy or connection in other areas of your life. And then the other question in this worksheet is, what's one small way you could tend to that underlying emotion without alcohol? And when you ask your brain these types of really high-level questions, you will get high-level answers. Your brain has this information based on you and your life and what you need. So if you're stressed at the end of the day and you're tired from working all day and you're coming home to make dinner and you ask yourself, what's one small way I could tend to this anxiety or stress that I feel without alcohol? What comes up for you? For me, it would be like, I just need to take a break. I just need to put my feet up the wall and relax and not have to do something else, right? You need to relax. You need to stop doing. right? Just pouring alcohol so you can get through the next section of the night isn't a solution, okay? So that's where this worksheet can be super helpful. Just little small things that you can be aware of and do. The next section is around connection. And I love this quote from Dr. Brene Brown, who's also sober and talks a lot about deep emotional stuff, does a lot of research on feelings, especially around shame. She wrote, "Connection is why we're here. It is what gives purpose and meaning to our lives." That was Dr. Brene Brown. And so when we think about that, and I've been having really awesome conversations with my clients around this and loneliness. Loneliness is a very strong thread in all the people I'm coaching right now. And loneliness isn't just because if you live alone. Loneliness also stems from not having a connection with yourself, not knowing what fuels you, not feeling like a sense of purpose, not knowing yourself, right? So we want, getting back to the purpose of this podcast is like, what are the number one tips, the number one solutions to helping you stop over drinking? We're talking about connection with people, connection with yourself, right? So there's power in support, there's power in community, and there's power in being seen, right? So many of you are walking this path alone, and you're so scared to share with other people or to share what your inside thoughts and struggles and feelings are, that it holds you back and you don't get that connection, right? You're so scared to write out your own thoughts on the piece of paper, right? You're missing with that connection of knowing yourself and being known. So that's why I love the way I have my business set up. Most of it's in groups. And even my private clients have access to my Alive AF coaching program because it's so important for you to see that you're not alone and to open up and share with other people who are walking this path with you. That's why I host retreats, right? And then getting back into the pivot, like this is going to be a big group of women all wanting to change their relationship with alcohol and change direction for themselves. So when you join that community, it helps you open up more and connect with yourself and other people. And it's a huge component to undoing these long time habits that you have with drinking. I promise you it's important. So if you haven't been having this connection with other people or even with yourself, it's time to start. It is a huge component of it. And I agree with the experts. Okay. So in the worksheet, there's questions. Who in your life truly sees you and understands you? And this worksheet is not something that I want you to feel bad about yourself. It's just, you got to uncover where you currently are. If you're not heard or seen and you don't know yourself, that needs to be pointed out. You need to see that so that you can change it. The other question is, where do you feel most connected or safe? What would it look like to reach out for support more consistently? And what resistance do you feel around connection or community support? And where might that resistance come from? It just helps you dig a little bit deeper, these questions in the worksheet, okay? And then the final section is around mindfulness and awareness in the fourth section. And this is actually my own quote. When you become the observer of your thoughts, instead of being in them, you get your power back. Angela Mascenik. It's a good one. So the next time you feel the urge to drink, how can you pause instead of react? So we know that we have the urge to drink based on, we're aware of the thoughts in our head that tell us that a drink right now would be a good idea in some capacity, right? And the power that you have in that moment is just observing your thoughts instead of just answering them, instead of just not questioning those thoughts. You're like, oh yeah, it would be. And then you just go get a drink. That's being in your thoughts and letting them lead you. Observing your thoughts is, oh, I recognize I'm having a thought about drinking right now. Let's look at that. Can I pause here and be with that and process this urge and interrupt that pattern instead of giving into it, right? So that's what I talk about, the stop notice process. That's the SNP. You recognize the thoughts that you're having. You recognize that you're in an urge. You stop, you notice that, and you process. You use your breath and you connect with your body to go in and process and interrupt that automatic process. And that building awareness is so powerful, because even if you end up drinking, you're going to learn a little bit more information each time, and you're going to be more conscious. And the more conscious you are, the more ability you have to interrupt those patterns. Okay, that's where your power lies. So in the worksheet that I created for you, there's some questions. What are 2 to 3 thoughts that come up most often right before you drink? Write those down. Okay. And then the next one is, how could you gently challenge or reframe those thoughts? The original thought could be like, I deserve a drink. I've worked really hard today. You could reframe that to, I deserve peace and rest, not something that steals that from me. Right? I actually heard one from my client, Julie, today. She reframed it like this. She was working through having a drink. Okay. And she played it out in her head. She's like, there's no reason I can't have a drink. I don't have to drive. I don't have anything to do, blah, blah, blah. Right? But then she said, but I have every reason not to have a drink. I don't want to feel tired. I don't want to go home and be by myself and tired. I want to go do things. I want to go see the sunset. I want to have a good night's sleep. So she came up with this thought, I have no reason not to have a drink, but I have every reason not to have a drink. Isn't that wild? I love this quote from her. I have no reason not to have a drink, but I have every reason not to have a drink, right? That's a beautiful in the moment reframe, right? She had those original thoughts. I don't have anything to do. Nobody will know. All of that stuff. I don't have to drive. It's free. All of these things, right? No good reason not to have a drink, but I have every reason not to have a drink. And she played that through. I love that so much. I had to share it with you. Okay. So reframing your thoughts, being cognizant of what's going on in your head, that mindfulness and awareness is very, very powerful. And all the experts agree on these 4 things. So I'm just going to sort of recap them for you. Okay. And section number 1 was about some time, giving yourself some time away from alcohol, whether that's a day or 30 days or somewhere in between, breaking that addiction long enough to allow your brain's dopamine system to reset. That's from Dr. Anna Lemke from the Dopamine Nation. Excellent book, highly recommend. You got to start where you are. 30 days is too long. Start somewhere. Start with 1. And I like to use this mantra. If I can do 1, I can do 2. If I can do 2, I can do 4. If I can do 4, I can do 8. And so whenever I'm in that, if I can do 2, oh, I could do 4, right? So I just stay there. So if you can do 1, you can do 2. That's what you say on the second day. On the second day, you say, oh, I can do 2, I could do 4, I can do 2 more, right? And you keep those little goals really close to yourself, and don't get all worked up and anxious about a long-term goal if that's too much for you. The worksheet's going to help you work through that. Okay. Section number 2 is the pain, right? So the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. That was Dr. Gabor Mate in The Realm of Hungry Ghosts. So what feelings are preceding your drinking, right? What might you be drinking to protect yourself from feeling or facing? Okay. And then section number 3 is all about connection. Dr. Brene Brown says, connection is why we're here. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. Who in your life truly sees and understands you? Right? We need to understand ourselves first of all, and then being seen and heard and understood. I can't tell you how many times my clients tell me this. You are in my brain. You understand me. You get it. And I 100% do, because I've been there. And so do the other people that are in the programs that I lead and teach. Okay? And then number 4 is that mindfulness and awareness. When you become the observer of your thoughts instead of being in them, you get your power back. That's me, Angela Mascenik. Okay, so being cognizant of what you're thinking before you drink. Stop, notice, and process, and interrupt those thought patterns. That's where our power is. That's one of the beauties of being a human, is we have the power to do that. We're not 100% animals where we don't have any thought. We can't interrupt our own behavior. We can do that. And then the bonus in the worksheet is your pivot point. So as you're listening to this, what's one decision you can make this week to change the direction of your relationship with alcohol? write it down. And if you need an idea, join The Pivot, angelamascenik.com/The Pivot. It goes down from June 2nd to June 5th. It's free. There's 6 live coaching sessions. Everything's going to be recorded. I'm going to coach as many people as I possibly can to make pivots with their relationship with alcohol. So that's what I got for you, my friends. Make sure you head over to the show notes and download this worksheet. You can listen to it all the way through and then do the worksheet, or download the worksheet and then go through this podcast again and pause it. However you do it is the right way, I promise. Don't overthink it, but do it and see what changes and what pivots for you in your drinking. I love you all. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.